Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, and today I'm going to be bringing you my review of the game. This title was provided to me by Capcom so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it, and also bring you a bunch of content that is going to be hitting the channel over the next couple of weeks. More details on that at the end of this video. Now, I've been playing Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak a whole lot over the last couple of weeks or so. I actually wanted to play a whole lot more, but real-life obligations, such as being the father of 2 small children, have actually prevented me from diving as deeply into the game as I wanted to. Now, having said that, I've put somewhere north of 60 hours or maybe 70 hours, I'm not 100% sure, because I didn't really look at the time of my PC save file when I started playing the game. I know that that file is now sitting somewhere north of 300 hours of gameplay, but I don't remember exactly what was the time that I've spent playing Sunbreak. Now, having said that, there's still going to be a whole lot more hours that I'm going to be pouring into the game because I'm nowhere close to being done with the game. I have just gotten to a point where I've seen pretty much all of the systems that the game has to offer. At least I believe so, unless they're saving some stuff like past the 200-hour mark, besides the free title updates that, that I might have not seen. I've also been in contact with other people that are playing the game, such as Fighting Cowboy, and we've been discussing some of the aspects of the game so that I was making sure that, like, okay, so this system, you've seen it, I've seen this system, you've seen this, you've seen that, and, so between the two of us, I have a pretty good idea of all of the things in the game, despite the fact that there were some things that I purposefully left unexplored so that I could explore them on stream. Things like, for instance, the follower quests. I've done a whole lot of them, but I didn't do all of them on purpose so that I can see the armors getting revealed and the weapons, and I'll go into more detail as to how follower quests work and all of that stuff a little bit further ahead in the video, because I actually want to start things off with a bit of an introduction for people that maybe have come to this video and you guys have no idea what Monster Hunter is all about, which I don't know how that's even possible, but sure. And you guys might be wondering, what is this Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak? Why are so many people excited about it? What's going on? And Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak is a G rank expansion, which for some people that'll mean absolutely nothing, but think of it as like an old school expansion and then multiply that by like a factor of 5 or something like that. And that's about the amount of content that you can expect. So it's more content that you would usually expect from like a traditional expansion to a video game, which you don't really see those nowadays. Nowadays, it's just like, oh, it's DLC. It's like, here's a $10 DLC. It's like, no. This has probably, at least, actually, this has definitely more content than the base game of Monster Hunter Rise. So, let's start by very quickly defining what Monster Hunter is. For those of you that are completely new to the Monster Hunter franchise, the 2 of you that are watching this video for some reason, Monster Hunter is a hunting game. And some people consider it to be an RPG. It actually won the Best RPG award back in 2018 for Monster Hunter World. I wouldn't really go that route because to me RPG means leveling up your character, playing a role, doing all of these different things. Whereas in Monster Hunter, you don't really do a whole lot of role-playing, and your character doesn't really level up. You just get new armor that is more powerful, and new weapons that are more powerful, and they sometimes come with skills, and that is kind of how you customize your character. You don't really level up as you would do in an RPG. So I call it a hunting game, and the whole loop of a Monster Hunter game consists of you going out, hunting a monster, carving it up, grabbing its pieces, bringing it back to your base, and then crafting new armor, new weapons, and then going and facing off against a bigger monster, and the cycle keeps repeating until you run out of big, mean monsters. Sometimes you'll have to kill a monster more than once to get the parts that you want, because it's not like you can get every single part every single time. But yeah, that's kind of like the core loop. Kill monster, get parts, make better armor and weapons, and then kill bigger monster. That's your basic loop for a Monster Hunter game. And when it comes specifically to Monster Hunter Rise, this is, I believe, the most fast-paced and flashy Monster Hunter that we've had to date. I mean, Generations Ultimate can compete with it in terms of flashy moves, because it's got some really crazy there's a laser sword in Generations Ultimate, alright? Charge Blade can do like a lightsaber move that destroys stuff. That's not really in Rise. Or Sunbreak, I'm sorry, Charge Blade mains. But you guys get the idea, right? Rise is one of the faster Monster Hunter games to come out. And Sunbreak doubles down on that. Sunbreak is even faster, is even more flashy. It's got crazy moves. It's got silk bind, switch skill, swapping, and all of these crazy systems. And it can sound complex, particularly for newcomers, but I can tell you guys what, it is a whole lot of fun, and I really enjoyed myself with it. Okay? So, having said that, it's a G rank expansion. For those of you that do not know what to expect from that, what can you expect? You expect new monsters, new moves for your weapons, new quests, new challenges, and new locales. That means new maps. So we're going to be starting by just briefly touching up on visuals. There really isn't a whole lot to say. Like, if you played Rise, you know what the game looks like. In my opinion, the game looks real good. It's not going to blow your mind or anything. I saw that at the start of Sunbreak, there is an RTX logo, but unfortunately, my best GPU is an AMD GPU, so I don't really get to play around too much with the RTX stuff, and I don't think I could turn on RTX on my 2060, otherwise it will explode and, you know, damage my computer, so I'd rather not do that. But in terms of visuals, I think it looks really good. The animations look really good, and when we're talking about visuals, one of the things that I definitely want to bring up is the cutscenes. Now, personally, I didn't think that the cutscenes in Rise were like exceptional. Like, I thought that they were good. You can usually see that there's a lot of quality in the animation of Monster Hunter. There's a lot of attention to detail. But having experienced Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, it is probably going to give you guys, how should I put this? It's going to give you some more context as to just how much Corona actually affected the development of Monster Hunter Rise, because I felt that the cutscenes in Rise were pretty much tame, and sometimes the animation of your characters in some of the in-game cutscenes actually felt a little bit weird. This time around, forget all that. The cutscenes in Sunbreak are well above and beyond anything that you will have seen in Rise. Particularly one of the later cutscenes that you see, kind of like before the final fight, so to speak. I thought that cutscene was really good, but you know, that's going to depend from person to person. But I definitely feel like the cutscenes are way, way better. Unfortunately, it does still suffer from the same problem that Rise has. And this is, you know, this is something that on the Switch, most people won't even notice it. But on the PC, when you're playing the game at a silky smooth 60 FPS or even higher, because, you know, like right now I have a 144 hertz monitor, dude, it's real good, silky smooth, lovely. And then the cutscenes start and they're 30 FPS. What is wrong with you, Capcom? Why are these cutscenes still 30 FPS? I don't understand. So like the meal cutscenes 30 FPS, the actual cutscenes that you get in between some of the quests are 30 FPS. And that was, you know, that was disappointing that is still the way that it works. Now I know that the modding community is probably going to fix that, just like they did for Monster Hunter Rise, but it's like, look, I don't do mods when it comes to these games. So I just wish that, why can't Capcom figure out how to put these cutscenes running at a smoother frame rate? I don't understand. And these cutscenes are so good. I really love them. They're way better than the cutscenes that we got in Rise. So I just really wish that they had done a better job with that. But, you know, it is what it is. Ultimately, this is not really going to affect your gameplay experience. It is just still going to be jarring when you're just doing a hunt at silky smooth frame rate. Then suddenly, okay, cutscene triggered. And you're like, oh, God. 30 FPS, make it go away. But like I said, on the Nintendo Switch, you're not even going to notice that any of this is happening. In terms of sounds and the soundtrack, it is all good. I played the whole thing in Japanese, and I'm going to be streaming the Switch version in English to experience the whole thing in English. I think everything was pretty good about as what is to be expected. Like, if you've seen the stuff in Rise, then you know what to expect from Sunbreak. The soundtrack was also pretty good. In terms of a story, which I'm not going to be spoiling you guys at all when it comes to story, but the story here is fairly basic, which if you guys think back to the story of Rise, it was a little bit more complex in terms of like, oh, they're resonating with Ibushi and Narwa, and there's all of these things happening. That kind of stuff doesn't really happen in Sunbreak, unless I've already forgotten about it, but I don't remember it happening at all. It's much more straightforward. It's like, hey, there's these events happening, we have to deal with them, and, you know, there's this monster, and then there's this other bigger monster that, you know, is going to show up, and you're going to have to deal with the bigger monster that's a catastrophe and all of these things. And, you know, again, not going into too many details, but it's pretty much what you've come to expect from Monster Hunter, right? You go through the story, and it's all about how, you know, we got to balance things out in nature, and there's an unbalance, and is this monster that's causing it, or is that monster that's causing it, and we have to go in and put him down. It's just that simple, and that's pretty much all that I need. Having said that, I felt like, I don't know, because I like the story in Rise, but the resonance elements of it, kind of like, you know, when you think back to it, you're like, well, that's not very Monster Hunter-y, kind of, right? But it didn't bother me, obviously. I mean, I still have, I had at least over 200 hours on my PC save and 700 hours on my Switch save, so like 900 hours of Rise. So you can tell that didn't really bother me that much. But like, I felt that this time this story was more what you've come to expect from Monster Hunter than necessarily this supernatural stuff. But, you know, you guys will let me know how you feel about it when you actually play through it. So now let's talk about actual gameplay and like the stuff that I've seen so far. Again, without going into details, more giving you guys a couple of numbers. So in the 60 or 70 hours that I've played the game so far, I've seen 16 new monsters. And you guys are like, oh, only 16? That's not really a whole lot. And this was actually one of the things that bothered me a little bit, and that was there weren't really any surprises before you hit credits. I mean, there's one surprise, which I believe has already been spoiled because a lot of people were data mining the demo and stuff like that, and, you know, that stuff's always going to be happening. So probably a lot of you guys already know which surprise that is. I'm still not going to be revealing it, but yeah, they did reveal most of the roster that was coming again, which was a little bit disappointing. But, like I said, 16 new monsters. It is important to put so far. And why is that? That is because I am aware of the fact that there are more monsters because I still have weapon trees that I cannot see, which means, you know, for those who don't know how it works, whenever there's a weapon tree that still has question marks, it means that that's a monster that you still have not encountered in the field. And I'm currently advancing through the post-game content, and this means that some of the monsters you will actually only see after you finish the actual main story and you go through the post-game stuff. And as you go through the quests, you know, those quests that are capped off by our master rank. I'm currently on the road to Master Rank 50, which is something that, you know, I kind of wanted to hold off to do those post quests on stream and stuff like that. But just know that there are even more, at least that I can see from the Gunlands tree. I think that there's at least just 2 more, and, you know, because not every monster has every single weapon, I believe that there's potential for being at least 3 to 4 more monsters besides the 16 that I've already seen, which, if you think about it, if I've seen 16 new monsters and, you know, if we add 4 more, that would be an even 20, which kind of makes sense. And some of you guys might be thinking, okay, so even then, that doesn't feel like there's that much. But the fact of the matter is, all of the base game monsters return as well, and all of them get new moves to make the fights a little bit more challenging, which some of them will surprise you from time to time. Some of them definitely did, like, for instance, Rachna. Rachna surprised me. I think that on the first fight that I did Rachna, she carded me twice. Didn't cause me to fail the quest, but did card me twice, which I was very surprised. And there were a couple of monsters that carded me in unexpected ways, which to me was a good thing, because, like, you know, we've all been talking about how we felt that Rise was a much easier game. This one, while being more challenging, I also felt that before I hit credits and got engaged with the endgame system, I didn't feel that much challenge either. Now, this could be, look, I only played Gunlance up until this point. I want to play the other weapons as well, naturally, and do guides and stuff like that. But I wanted to focus on Gunlance so that I could unlock things and kind of like really master my main weapon, because Gunlance does feel good. I don't know how it feels in comparison to other weapons, because, like I've told you guys, that's never really been something that I'm too concerned about, how it feels in comparison with the weapons. It's more about, does it feel powerful? And it feels powerful. It packs one hell of a punch. The Gunlance packs one. I don't care if it's slower than the other weapons. Like, It actually, you know, the thing that I talked about in previous videos before Sunbreak, when we talked about weapon balance and all that stuff, it feels powerful. It feels meaty. It hits hard, and it feels good. But I also think that it is probably a whole lot better in terms of like the balancing of weapons. At least for now. We'll see how it scales once I keep going further and further into Endgame, but at least up until this point, it feels really, really solid. But there is still no like scam. But anyways, I don't want to turn this into a Gunlance discussion. The point that I was trying to make is that the game felt reasonably easy, not overly challenging. To give you guys an idea, before end credits, I mean, up until you get to end credits, I've failed one quest. And the reason I failed that quest was because I was getting really cocky. I was just like, yep, I'm just gonna do this. I don't care. Monster was doing something like, I don't care. I'm gonna hyper armor through it and go. Like, I was being that kind of a jackass. And, you know, eventually I got punished pretty hard and I got stunned and died 3 times reasonably fast. And then I was like, okay, we'll be taking it a little bit slower moving forward. So yeah, that's kind of like my take on the challenging. But the thing is, once I got past credits, once I got to the end game system, which I'll tell you guys a little bit about it without getting into too many details. But once I got to the end game system, then I started feeling, oh, so you guys basically kind of saved the difficulty to the back end of the game, to the actual end game aspect of it. Now you're starting to feel the difficulty. Like, to give you guys an idea, Fighting Cowboy even told me, dude, I'm running Divine Blessing on all of my sets, dude. I was like, well, all right then. Which does not surprise me because, yeah, some of the monsters in the end, they start getting pretty friggin' wild. But so the way that the endgame system works, it's basically, I'm just gonna, you know, give you guys an example that you can kind of relate to, at least the majority of the player base. It's kind of like Tempered Monsters, all right? It's kind of like Tempered Monsters. Not exactly Tempered Monsters, but it's kind of like that. Because you see, whereas Tempered Monsters was more about, it's just numbers, and some of them get some new moves and stuff like that. This one is more about speed. They move so fast, and because of the new moves that they get with G rank, they can combo so hard that you really want to take full advantage of how fast your hunter can be. Like, just to give you guys an idea, I got triple carded by a Royal Ludruth, okay? Royal Ludruth beat the crap out of me in the endgame system, all right? Now, having said that, there isn't something like an investigation system, which is something that I know a lot of people wanted. That means dynamically generated hunts and stuff like that. There isn't anything like that, at least that I've seen so far. The quests are static, and, you know, they give you a list of monsters, which comes after you finish the final boss and whatnot. They give you a list of monsters, and it's like, okay, here's the monsters. These are more powerful because of this. And go fight them, go have fun. And as you fight these monsters, you're going to be getting specific parts that are going to let you upgrade your weapons to the max. Which you can't really upgrade your weapons to the max unless you engage in these harder, more challenging quests. And one of the things that I find interesting is that all of the weapons get like I don't think all of them, but most of them get like a final version in the tree. Like, you know how usually you don't get the maximum rarity on every weapon? It feels like this time most weapons get like a final rarity version in the tree, which was interesting to me when I was comparing, like I was looking at Sword and Shields, for instance, and I was trying to figure out, okay, which one is kind of like the best raw Sword and Shield? And it wasn't immediately obvious because of the different combinations of sharpness and affinity and slots and stuff like that. Because usually, even though you have all these combinations, you can look at a weapon, right, and you can be like, okay, this is the best one. Like, you, for instance, in the case of Longsword and Rise, right, you look at all the longswords and you're like, okay, Tigrex is beast, right? You can instantly tell this weapon is beast. You look at a Nargacuga longsword, like, this weapon is beast. And finally, you look at a Chameleos longsword and you're like, this weapon is beast. Whereas this time around, I was looking at Sword and Shields, and I was like, oh man, I mean, there's clearly some here that I'm not interested in, but there's a lot of them, and I'm like, I could make this work. Yeah, this looks good. So, to give you guys an idea, you just look, and I was like, oh, I mean, the Kimura Sword and Shield is looking hella good because it's got so many slots. What is going on, right? So that is a really cool thing, right? So with this endgame system, you will be able to get specific parts, and then you'll unlock new ranks of this endgame system, and then you'll get better parts for some of the other weapons. And like each weapon has like a specific part that you need to unlock, and that means you're going to have to fight a specific monster in order to be able to craft that specific weapon to its fullest extent. And that's kind of like the end game loop, right? I haven't mentioned in terms of like maps, so just really quick, you also get 2 new maps that I've seen so far, plus the final boss area. Most people already know what those maps are because they have been officially revealed, so there's not a whole lot to say there. There's also tons of quests, like there's even way more quests than you've had in Rise. Like you get quests on top of quests on top of quests. Even like outside of this endgame system that I'm talking about, just like quests for monsters and stuff, like you'll get 4 monster quests and stuff like that. Which, you know, you're not going to fight 4 monsters at the same time, but, you know, you get the idea. There's tons and tons and tons of quests for you guys that want to like complete and get all of the check marks. They're like, I'm not even close to getting those, which is something that I plan to eventually do on stream. There aren't any events in the game up until this point, so I can't really tell you anything about events. The events that are in there are still just stuff from Rise. They're probably going to be adding those events in the upcoming weeks after release. There's also the follower and survey quests. Now, this has been something that a lot of us were wondering because they almost made it seem like, oh, there's a relationship thing going on with the followers and stuff like that. And it isn't like a relationship thing, more so than you do 3 quests with them or something, and then you unlock them to do survey quests. So it's kind of, you have specific follower quests that you have to do with them, and as you do these specific quests, they will unlock the, you know, the royal weapons and the royal armor, so the stuff that you see them wear in the game. So playing these quests with them, you'll unlock their designs and all of that, so that you can use them in the game itself. And these are actual full armor sets with actual skills. It's not just for layered armor, even though you can use them for layered armor. These are still full armor sets. In case you guys are wondering, no, I haven't unlocked Master Arlo's armor set because I've been focusing on advancing so that I could actually do the review of the game, which goes against my better judgment. I always tell people, take your time, and then here I am, kind of like, I didn't really boost through, like I stopped at multiple points to do my, my armors, but I wanted to put out this video with the review, so I still kind of went a little bit faster than I usually would. But that also leaves me with a lot of stuff to do when I get to the streams, which in my opinion is also a good thing, and it was something that I had intended. So I have unlocked some of the armors, like I unlocked Fiorane's armor, I unlocked Fiorane's sword and shield, I unlocked Master Arlo's gun lance, all of that stuff, and these are things that you will unlock as you complete the follower quests. I don't know how powerful some of these weapons are because even as far as I am into the game, I haven't unlocked the final form of their weapons because it requires specific materials from these endgame powered up monsters that I was talking about. So what are survey quests though? Because I've been talking about follower quests. So follower quests is kind of like they choose the weapon that they're bringing into the hunt. They give you a target and you go with that follower and you do the thing, and they have like their own chatter that they'll do throughout it, but it's mostly generic stuff. And after you do a certain amount of quests with each of the followers, you unlock them for survey quests. And then survey quests is just Capcom gives you a bunch of quests that they put in there. These are not all of the quests that you have on your quest log. These are just like a separate set of quests. And in those quests, you can pick 2 of the followers that you've unlocked, which is why you're required to actually do the follower quests prior. And then you can actually choose which weapons those followers use. Which in my case, it seems like most of the people that I will be taking with me into quests is going to be Dame Luchinka and Master Arlo, because both of them can use a gun lance, and it's going to be 3 gun lance bros against the world. It's just that simple, and that is actually pretty cool. But they do have a lot of weapons, like each of them has between 3 and 4 weapons that you can kind of pick from, which is why, you know, I didn't expect to play too much with Dame Luchinka, because she is a gunner. And I'm just like, I don't play with a gunner. But she can also use a gun lance. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, I guess you're basically a permanent member of my team now. So, yeah, Dame Luchinka and Master Arlo, they're the best. But that's kind of like how follower and survey quests go. Now, my interpretation of these quests is besides the unlockable rewards that you get with the different armor pieces for each of these followers, stuff like that, and just the hunting experience of actually bringing these characters out into the field, which I think is important because you don't really get to do that in regular Monster Hunter, right? You'll interact with characters while you are in town and stuff like that, but you never really hunt with them. And I thought that that was actually a really neat aspect that I want to see make a return, maybe in an even more refined system than follower and survey quests. But in a practical sense, what I get from it is like, okay, so you feel maybe you're a little bit tired, maybe you don't feel like going super hardcore hunting a specific monster. You can kind of go in and there'll be these 2 NPCs to help you out. I haven't really judged their performance too much. I didn't really notice too much of a difference in terms of me hunting solo or hunting with them, with obvious, besides the fact that it is considerably easier because they do take the monster attention away from you from time to time. So there's that. But it mostly just seems like, hey, look, maybe you're someone who only plays solo. Here's what the multiplayer experience is kind of like. Monsters behave a little bit differently. They have more HP, and you can go in, you can beat them up and stuff like that. And you get these specific tickets that you can then use to craft their armors and stuff like that. But that's like follower and survey quests. And this is very much a system that is optional. With the exception of, I want to actually unlock these weapons, right? I want to unlock these weapons. I want to unlock these armors. Beyond that, this is an optional system. You engage with it as much as you want. It is completely optional. If you just want to do traditional monster hunting, you can, which I think is an important thing because not everybody's going to gel with doing the NPC quests, and I think that's fine, which is why it's an option. If you want to do it, you can do it. If you don't have to. Now, this next bit is something that I don't really want to dedicate too much time talking about it, but it is something that to me was a little bit disappointing, and that is that, you have a new base, right? You had Kimura, and now you have Elgato. Elgato does not have a gathering hub, and I don't know if this had already been revealed or not. I don't know if this was, something that they talked about. But it was definitely a surprise for me. Like, I got to Elgato and I was like, oh, cool, new city sounds cool. Okay, I want to see what the Hunter's Hub looks like. And there wasn't one. And it's like, I get it because if you go to Rise, right, people can hang out in the village, so people can hang out already in Kimura. Obviously, in the multiplayer session, people can hang out in Elgato as well. And I think that's cool. But I still think that, having a space for your hunters, I don't know, it just felt good. Like an actual, here's this room for the hunters that are going to go out and do quests together and stuff like that. It felt good. It felt good to have that gathering place with your friends. And I get it. You can just gather in Elgato. I'm actually curious to know how you guys feel about it. But to me, it felt weird because with every Monster Hunter game that you can think of, there's always, okay, here's the village and then here's the hub. And I get it that from a practical standpoint, they do that because, okay, in the village you're alone, and then in the hub you can actually see the other hunters, kind of like a social space. And now the villages themselves, with the Monster Hunter Rise, the villages became the social space. And, I guess that's okay, but it still felt weird not having a hunter's hub. I'm curious to hear from you guys how you guys will feel about learning that, but to me it was definitely weird. I was like, wow, there's no hub. It's weird, and again, it's something that from a practical sense, it's whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not really a big deal, but it's just from an immersion standpoint. There's always been a hub, and it's a place where you go and you can kind of like do arm wrestling, which I don't think you can arm wrestle in this game either. It's just a little social thing. I don't think it's a huge deal. Now, in terms of hunting, just actually going out there and hunting, it feels really fun. I think it's really cool. I like the new switch skills, particularly with the gun lance. Bullet barrage is friggin' gorgeous. I think it's awesome. The switch swap evade, switch skill swap evade. I forget. You guys know what I'm talking about. The swapping the switch skills scrolls and stuff like that. That's not actually mandatory, at least up until you finish the game. As a matter of fact, like if you watch the videos that I'll put up of the first playthrough, you'll notice that for the most part, I don't even engage with the system that much until I'm closer to the end, because it just doesn't feel necessary. The difficulty doesn't really mandate for that. But the cool thing is that there are specific skills that you will get that I don't want to go into too much detail with, but there are specific skills that you will get that actually interact with the aspect of you swapping around. And some of those skills are powerful as hell. Like, I'm actually using one of them right now, which this one was kind of revealed in the multiple gameplay footage that we've watched, which was the thing that looked like Valor dodging, whatever. It's redirection. It's a skill from the Lunagaron set. And it is really good. It's just a really good skill because you get a Valor dodge and it reduces the cooldown of your wire bug and stuff like that. I started using that closer to the end because I wasn't even aware that it reduced your wire bug cooldowns. But yeah, it's really good. And there are other ones, like Cowboy was telling me, oh, you should use this skill, it's really good. And I know what the skill does, but yeah, there's a couple of skills that actually interact with the system of you actually swapping between two different sets that make it really interesting. And swapping between two different sets of skills with your switch skills and stuff like that does add new layers of mastery to the game, which I think is kind of cool. And it is definitely something that I've started playing into more and more when I started engaging with the end game of the game. But starting off, I didn't really feel the need for it, but I think that is going to vary on a weapon per weapon basis because, you know, most value that Gunlance is getting right now is pretty much Bullet Barrage. So spamming Bullet Barrage is your best possible DPS, at least from, you know, the very basic maths that I've done. So there's not a whole lot of reason for me to swap. I mean, what I'm going to do is swap the Hail Cutter, swap the Ground Splitter. I mean, Ground Splitter can actually be useful, like, particularly in smaller monsters and stuff, but, you know, again, I don't want this to just transform into Gunlance shenanigans. There's going to be a video talking specifically about that, so, yeah. So, yeah, hunting is fun. New switch skills are a whole lot of fun. The system, even though, again, it's not mandatory, at least until you get to the very end game stuff, it is still fun and adds new layers of mastery to the game. In terms of build variety, I was actually positively surprised. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of like sets that you can look through. I'm pretty sure that the set that I'm currently using is probably not super optimal, but interestingly enough, it didn't end up just being like Basel because I ended up using something completely different, which is cool. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of variety in terms of your builds, and there's a new system called Rampage Decorations. Now, the way that Rampage Decorations work is pretty much the old ramp-up system that you had, which, if you guys remember, back when, you know, you'd get a weapon in Monster Hunter Rise, and then you'd use, like, your Rampage tickets, and you'd ramp up the weapon, and that would give it, like, a special thing. And each weapon would have, like, 3 or 4 different, no, just 3, actually, unless you were doing a Rampage weapon, which is customizable, and all of that. But each weapon would have like 3 choices that you could have in terms of like, okay, you can put this thing in and now your weapon deals more damage, or put this thing in or your Silkbind skills deal more damage, or whatever, right? Every weapon kind of like had that. Well, now the way that it works is every weapon has a special slot, which is the Rampage slot. And the ramp-up skills basically become Rampage decorations. So you can craft these Rampage decorations and you can put them on any weapon, assuming that the weapon supports it. So to give you guys an idea, you guys remember some weapons would have something like anti-aquatic, anti-air, and Wyvern exploit, and whatnot. These are all things that would deal additional damage to a specific type of monster, right? And this particular type was important to me because it also affected shelling damage. And basically the way that it works now is you just get a weapon, like any weapon that you craft, and it's going to have a Rampage slot, and you just grab the Rampage skill that you want, you put it in there. So for instance, Kushala Daora. You guys remember the Kushala Daora special Rampage skill, which was like you hit the monster multiple times and it starts stacking up affinity up until like 15% or something like that? That's just a decoration now that you can put on any weapon that you want, assuming that weapon has an appropriate tier deco, because very much like regular decorations, Rampage slots come in tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1. And Rampage decorations themselves will also come in tier 2, tier 3, and tier 1. The more powerful the decoration is, the bigger it's going to be. So the ones that I was talking about, anti-aquatic, wyvern exploit, all of this stuff, you're talking about tier 2 Rampage decorations. So long as your weapon has a tier 2 Rampage slot, you can slot that in and boom, you're dealing additional damage. And like that, there are other things like Teostra's Soul, Camilleo's Soul, Kushala the Aura Soul, like I was saying. All those, I think, are also tier 2s. And then there's Elemental Exploit, which is tier 3. But not just that, there's specific Rampage decorations that will be specific to a weapon. Like, to give you guys an idea, there's tier 3 Rampage decoration that powers up Demon Mode in dual blades, right? And there's more stuff like that. There's a bunch of different Rampage decorations. And you guys are like, you're listening to me say the word, dude, Rampage decorations? I thought there were no Rampage. There aren't any Rampages. This is just the name of that. It's Rampage decoration slots and Rampage decorations, but it's not actually Rampages. You just get these materials by hunting regularly. You don't have to do Rampages at all. There are no G-rank Rampages from what I've seen so far, at least up until the point that I've played the game. Not a single Rampage was done. So, in terms of, your min-maxing stuff, how are we doing with other decorations that are not Rampage? You craft them. You basically craft them. There are tier 4 decorations. They are not random. And they do not have, at least from the ones that I've seen so far, they do not have multiple skills. Like, usually if you have a tier 4 deco, it's going to be specific to one skill. So, like, for instance, you can get a hard item prolonger deco, and that'll be like 3 points in item prolonger, and that's one tier 4 skill. And there's more skills like that. There's a bunch of them, but every single decoration only does one skill. It's not like Monster Hunter World. And those are all craftable. So there's no RNG to decorations that I've seen so far. The RNG remains in the charms. There's a new melding ritual that unlocks at the very end of the game once you actually beat the final boss. They give you another melding ritual that I think is a little bit better than the current one. But to be honest, it was like the first pull that I did of that was really good. And every single pull that I did afterwards has been complete garbage. So it's like, don't expect much from the new melding ritual. You might just end up getting disappointed. I'm still using that 2 Part Breaker, 3 Wire Bug Whisper, 2 tier 2 slots that I had pretty much since the beginning of the game, because I still haven't gotten a better charm. But I do feel like, this is a bit of a criticism that I have, I feel like the new melding ritual should have come in much earlier than after you beat the final boss. Because, like, basically there's no reason, if you've been engaging with the old system, I kind of feel like there's no reason for you to keep melding stuff, because there's going to be a better melding ritual at the end. It's weird. I wish they would have unlocked that particular feature a little bit sooner, but, it is what it is. Now, just a quick brief mention on Palicoes and Palamutes, which you guys know I'm obsessed with it. I usually try to look for a better one. They're going to be getting new skills. They're going to be getting secret support moves, which are like beefed up support moves that the Palicoes can have. I haven't really played too much with Palamutes, so I can't tell you guys too much about it. But I can tell you that Palamutes also get new skills, and they also get new... what is it called? Palamute gear, whatever. I haven't really crafted any of the Palamute gear because you guys know me, I usually run 2 Palicoes because my Palicoes are complete psycho savages. But really, really good news is that the Palicoes and Palamutes are fully customizable once you unlock all of the features. And these are side quests and requests that you will unlock as you play through the game. It takes a while to unlock everything, but basically what this means is I wouldn't obsess over getting the perfect Palamute and perfect Palico. What you want to do is get Palicoes and Palamutes that have the skills that you want your Palicoes and Palamutes to have. So they don't have to have all of the skills, but let's say you get, here's a Palico that has like support centric, which is one of the new skills that you get, which makes them get their support abilities more often, right? You get that Palico because you want to get that support centric skill, and then you train that Palico up in the dojo so that it levels up to the point where it gets that skill, and then you can just give that skill to any other Palico that you want. So you can basically, after you unlock the skills that you find important in a specific Palico, you can give those to another Palico, and you can unlock. You literally have everything unlocked. So you can literally just go through and you go like, okay, I want my Palico or my Palamute to have critical up L, attack up L, status attack up, and you can just like put all those things in there. They all get 3 additional memory things. So back in Rise, you had 5, and here you're gonna have 8. So you can put your calculations into that. But yeah, I think that this is a huge improvement because you guys know how long it took me in base Rise to like actually hunt for the Palico that I wanted. Whereas now, after you've unlocked all of these features by, you just play the game and you do a couple of requests to your buddy handler or whatever. When you do those requests, and after you do that, you can just swap around whenever you want. You're just like, okay, now I want you to have like this different move. Like, okay, I want, for instance, one of the moves that I struggled a lot at the beginning of Rise was Summon Endemic Life, because I wanted to have Summon Endemic Life, and I wasn't able to get it. Now I can just go to the support moves, and I'll be like, okay, this move is Summon Endemic Life. The one thing that you still can't change is the 2 base moves of the Palico. So if you have a Bombardier Palico, for instance, you cannot change the Wyvern Blast thing, which is the weakest skill that they have, and you can't change the Giga Barrel Bombay or whatever the hell it's called, right? But other than that, you can change the other three support moves. You can change all of the skills. You can do all of that stuff. Another thing that they've said that I don't really use is Palamutes can give you additional storage. So the Palamute has like a pouch, which is really good if you're doing like gathering runs and stuff like that, I guess. But yeah, the Palamute you can just store stuff in the Palamute pouch. Whenever your pouch gets full, it goes to the Palamute pouch, and then you can take that stuff out. So Palamutes give you additional storage. So if you're someone who loves playing with Palamutes, you're going to have additional storage. As I mentioned previously in the video, Rampages are not making a comeback for Master Rank, at least not up until the point that I've played. One of the things that I forgot to mention is that there are also no Apex monsters. So these are 2 things that I believe had been officially confirmed by Capcom prior to the release of the game, so I don't think that this is major news or anything. I just wanted to confirm to you guys that I haven't seen any Rampages, I haven't seen any Apexes. I'm well on my way to Master Rank 50 as we speak, which is not really even a big achievement. You can get to where I am pretty fast, particularly if you don't, if you don't dilly-dally a little bit in some of the side activities like I did. It's fairly easy to get to the post-game content of the game, and I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more on the post-endgame content, because like I mentioned already in the video that these are static quests, so it's like there is going to be a point at which you will have done all the quests. There is no investigation system or anything like that, which is one of the things that the community really seem to want, like an investigation-like system that would generate random quests so that you could keep hunting and have more reasons to hunt and stuff like that. And I don't predict that Sunbreak is going to change people's opinion when it comes to the live service aspects of the game. Now, I've talked about this when it comes to Monster Hunter Rise, indicating that Monster Hunter is not a live service game. You don't have a battle pass or anything like that. And personally, I do not want a battle pass-like system. Like, I'm happy receiving the free title updates and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like you guys should be aware, if that is something that is super important to you, like the live service aspect of video games, because I understand a lot of people nowadays, particularly after having played Monster Hunter World Iceborne, which had a little bit more of an endgame loop to it, they've come to expect that from Monster Hunter games, and I don't think that that is going to be the case with Sunbreak either. Again, I want to make people perfectly aware that, like, once you hit credits and they unlock the system that I've been calling tempered, because I don't want to do spoilers. It's not tempered, it's something different, but basically the monsters will be more powerful. I haven't seen that system all the way through to the end, because I believe it's going to be a lengthy process, and I wanted to do it in the live stream and stuff like that. But I believe that that system does have an end point, a point that you will get to where it's like, okay, these are the hardest possible quests, and that's it. Like, you are going to hit that point. It's not like the game is going to continuously generate investigations for you like Monster Hunter World Iceborne did. And that is one of the things that I want to make perfectly clear, that you are aware before you jump into Sunbreak, okay? There is going to be a point where you will have done everything, because again, and I find it interesting that I have to bring up this point, Monster Hunter Rise and Rise Sunbreak, this is not a live service game. It's going to have the free title updates and all that stuff. It's going to bring more monsters, but do expect to get to a point where it's like, okay, I've crafted all my, particularly if you only play one weapon. If you only play one weapon, you're going to get to that point much faster than everybody else. There's a lot of people that are going to be crafting sets for different weapon types and all of this. If you just want your one weapon, you are going to get to a point where it's like, okay, I min-maxed the crap out of my set. I can maybe, you know, meld out a couple of more charms and I might get something a little bit better, but this is it. Like, I've gotten to this point. And personally, I think that's a good thing, because that frees you up to potentially play other games, stuff like that. But I know that a lot of people are expecting the live service aspect of it. Now, having said that, I still expect a lot of people to get hundreds of hours out of Sunbreak. But there will be people that if you beeline the game and you just want to go after the power gains and you don't care too much about doing side activities, min-maxing Palicoes and doing all of these things, I do believe that you will get to a point, and fairly fast than most other people, you're going to get to that point, you're going to be like, okay, that's it. I've done everything there was to do, everything that I wanted to do, and I'm here now. And again, for some people that's a good thing, for some people that's a bad thing. I just want to make you aware, because this is a review. To me, I like it like that so that I can then dedicate my time to other games that I want to play. Some people don't like it like that, and I want you just to be aware. Now, having said that, I still like the game. I still recommend the game. It's an easy recommendation for me. If you did not like Rise, there is a chance that you might like this because of the monster roster. But if you did not like Rise's combat, yeah, that's going to be rough, because like I said, this is just Rise's combat dialed up to 11. It's even like more action-packed, even flashier skills, even more you know, mastery levels with the Silkbind swap and all of that stuff. So keep that in mind. That is what you will expect. Now, beyond that, I want to tell you guys about the content that I'm going to be doing for the game. So I believe that probably before I release this review, I will have probably live streamed, and this review will probably come shortly after the live stream. The live streams will be happening on Switch, on the Nintendo Switch. That is because my PC save file is already at Endgame, and I want to show you guys a little bit of progression before we go for the Endgame. I'll also be uploading episodes of my first playthrough of the game, for those of you that want to see my reaction to new monsters, stuff like that. So you can expect those to be hitting the channel once a day after the day. Or maybe even today. I'm not exactly sure how my schedule is going to be. Things are pretty hectic as I'm recording this well in advance. But yeah, so first playthrough episodes, live streams on Switch, and then once I get caught up, once I roll credits on Switch, I'm going to be swapping back to my PC save file, and then we're going to be doing all of the completionism content that I can possibly do. On the PC side of things, I'll probably be playing Switch off stream as well, because I really enjoy the game and I want to have a Switch save file as well to be able to play with some of my friends that only have it on Switch. And yeah, and obviously there's going to be guides that will be hitting the channel. Probably the first one will be Gunlance, and I have a couple of things that I want to do, like tips for maps and stuff like that, and tips for stuff that you can do in Elgato, and just, you know, regular guide content that you've come to expect from me. So look forward to that stuff hitting your inboxes pretty soon. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification icon, all that jazz. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.